Islamic gunpowder empires. Now there's three Islamic gunpowder empires: the Ottoman Empire, the Safavid Empire, and the Mughal Empire. Now I'm not going to go back to this map continuously throughout the slideshow, so when I switch back and forth, you can come back to this slide and look at which one's which. So the Islamic gunpowder empires are basically reestablished by a guy named Timur-Lang. Here's Timur. And he was a Muslim who basically took back territory that the Mongols had taken from Muslims. Mongols had come in, conquered the Islamic Empire. Timur-Lang leads Muslims against the Mongols and reestablishes that territory. And then these three empires develop. Now, these three empires are called the Islamic gunpowder empires because of their quick mastery of guns. They use these guns to expand their empires and take over. And they're going to constantly be at war with each other. The Islamic empires are not going to be united. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Ottoman Empire. Again, if you want to look at the map, go back to the first slide. But the Ottoman Empire was started by Osman Bey. Here's Osman with a Twinkie in his hat. And he unifies the Turkish people. And as he unifies the Turkish people, they are Muslim, they crown him Sultan, which is the political leader, but it's not the religious leader like the Caliph. The Caliph would have been a religious leader and political leader. And as he unifies the Turks, he's going to start conquering more territory. He conquers the Byzantine Empire, which had lasted a very, very long time. He conquers the whole Middle East and Northern Africa, so he's expanding the Ottoman Empire. But when he conquers the Byzantine Empire in particular, he renames Constantinople Istanbul. It's not going to be Constantinople anymore, which is a very important trading center for the Ottoman Empire and for Muslims. But he was so devastated when he conquered the city because he looked around at all the wealth and the glory of the city, and he was so sad that he had destroyed parts of it. But it was later rebuilt. All the churches were turned into mosques as it was taken over. But he promoted religious toleration. He did not persecute any of the other religions in his empire because he had expanded it so much, and there were a lot of different empires. Now, Selim I is a little bit different. He is going to persecute other religions. Later on down the road in the Ottoman Empire, Selim I takes over, and he claims to be the Caliph. So he's not just claiming to be the Sultan, the political leader, he's also claiming to be the religious leader. He wants to control Islam as well as the politics of the government of the Ottoman Empire. He starts the persecution of non-Muslims. So any Christian or Jew or other religion, but it mostly been Christians or Jews that lived in this empire. Now, one of the ways that he persecutes Christians is something called Janissaries. He would go and capture Christian children, and here we can see sort of the Janissary armies, and he would force these Christian children into the military. And that would build his military up with these Christian children. He would train them as children to be soldiers. And these Janissaries started out, there was sort of this persecution, but the Janissaries actually became, as they grew up, his elite fighting force because they were trained from children to be soldiers. They became kind of this elite fighting force for old Selim. Following Selim was Suleiman. Now, Suleiman ruled over a golden age in the Ottoman Empire. He strengthened the military, he built it up, especially employing the use of guns, and he promoted the arts and trade. As much trade as he possibly could, because now Europeans were going around them. But he tried to promote trade to make the empire stronger. Now, the Ottoman Empire was dominantly Sunni Islam, which means they believed the best leader should be the ruler, not necessarily the descendant of Muhammad. They were also a little bit less strict than Shias. And they constantly attacked Eastern Europe. So they took over the Byzantine Empire, but they kept pushing and pushing and attacking the rest of Eastern Europe. And this is really going to have a huge impact on Eastern Europe because they're not going to be able to experience the advancement that Western Europe did because they're always going to be defending themselves against the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans also have something called harems. And these harems, you can see down here, is this group of female servants for the rulers, for the sultans or for the caliphs, whatever they would claim to be at the time, and for the bureaucratic officials. And these harems would take care of the children. They would often be sexual servants for the rulers as well. But they had significant influence over the empire because they had access to the ruler, and the rulers would often listen to them and take their advice. They also would raise the kids. So as a kid who was raised by this woman later became the ruler, that person would have significant influence over that kid's life. The Ottoman Empire also slowly lost power because of the Europeans. The Europeans used to go through the Ottoman Empire to trade. Now they're going to go around them, which is going to keep the Ottomans from being able to collect tax. It's going to keep them from getting as powerful. So they're going to slowly decline as their control of trade decreases. Now, in the Ottoman Empire, a new popular form of art is created called miniature paintings, very small paintings that are done very intricately, which is a huge new advancement in art. And they could carry these paintings around with them. All right, moving on, out of the Ottoman Empire, out of the Middle East, to the Mughal Empire. The Mughals is located in South Asia or India or the Asian subcontinent, any of those. The first Mughal emperor was Babur, and he claimed to be a descendant of Genghis Khan. And that's one of the ways he legitimized his power, is claiming this link to the Mongols so that people would fear him. But he was a Muslim, and he constantly had, it was an Islamic gunpowder empire, but he constantly had conflict with Hindus, because Hindus were polytheistic, Muslims were monotheistic, and a lot of other religious differences too. But along comes Akbar, and he is going to promote religious toleration. He's going to try to end this conflict between Hindus and Muslims. He eliminates jizya, that extra tax on non-Muslims, and just in general tries to stop persecuting other religions. But one other thing he tries to do that sort of makes the Hindus mad is he tries to stop sati. Sati is a practice of widow suicide, where if a husband of a rich husband died, the wife would then commit suicide so she could go into the next life with her husband. Because the idea that she didn't really have a reason to live without her husband. And Akbar tried to stop that because he thought it was sort of this backwards kind of practice. But the Hindus sort of took offense to a Muslim trying to stop one of their cultural practices. Now, the Mughal Empire was also dominantly Sunni Islam. I mean, they claim, Babur claimed to be a descendant of Genghis Khan. Now, you can't claim to be a descendant of Genghis Khan and of Muhammad at the same time. So they were Sunni Islam. Their economy was largely based on cotton and the trade of cotton with Europeans. And they used peasant labor to produce this cotton so that they could make a lot of money selling it to Europeans. But this created a problem because as Europeans traded with them, Europeans being growing in power and getting more advanced, slowly started to take over port cities throughout South Asia. And the Mughal Empire didn't really think of anything. They just they thought the Europeans were not a threat. They sort of just overlooked it until it was much too late and Europeans had already started taking over their territory. Now, one other thing that develops in the Mughal Empire is a new religion called Sikhism, or Sikhs. Now, the Sikhs had both Hindu and Islamic influences. So as Muslim rulers were interacting with Hindus, the religion sort of mixed together. Now, they had several Hindu beliefs. They believed in reincarnation, caste systems, karma, dharma, and moksha, but they had this Islamic influence of being monotheistic. They didn't believe in all the different gods of Hinduism. They believed in one god, but they still carried all the other Hindu beliefs. All right, moving on from the Mughal Empire to the Safavid Empire. The Safavid Empire is located in between the Mughals and the Ottomans. You can refer back to that map if you'd like to. But this is dominantly Shia Islam. Now, the rulers were descendants of Muhammad. They traced their lineage back to be relatives of Muhammad. They believed that they should be they should rule over all Muslims. They should rule over the Ottoman Empire and the Mughal Empire because they should rule over all Muslims because they are the descendants of Muhammad. They believe in Shia Islam, but they are also a lot more strict as well, being Shias. And so this caused, because they wanted to rule over all Muslims, this caused a lot of conflict with the Ottomans and the Mughals as they were fighting, as the Safavids were trying to take control of them.
Ms. Q. Smith, if you are in the building, please report to the main office. Ms. Quinella Smith.
The Safavids also often allied with Europeans to try to help them fight the much more powerful Ottomans and Mughals. Also, while these Islamic gunpowder empires are growing, Sufism is going to spread as well. These Sufis are these kind of religious mystics. They have a lot of religious freedom in the ways that they practice Islam. They believe in complete devotion to God, but they mix very easily with other religions, which is not true of Shia or Sunni Islam. And so they're going to start to spread and gain more influence in the lower classes of these Islamic empires. And that is the end of Islamic empires.